Frank Lundy, FBI agent, expert in tracking killers, knew Dexter's secret and did nothing. Why? What if Lundy didn't just miss the signs but covered them up on purpose? Dexter wasn't a typical killer. He was a necessary evil. Lundy knew it and chose to let it slide. But why? Let's break it down. When we first meet Frank Lundy and Dexter, he's everything you expect from a top-tier FBI agent: sharp, calculating, and unyielding. He is a man of precision. He doesn't miss details. He hunts the worst criminals, and he always gets results. But here's the thing. Despite all that, he never seemed to be bothered by the fact that Dexter, the very person working with him, might be a murderer. So let's ask the question, why was Lundy, with all his experience, so blind to Dexter's crimes? Lundy's background as a top-notch FBI agent wasn't just for show. He was a profiler, a person who could read people like an open book. He had tracked down killers with precision, understood their every move, and outsmarted the smartest criminals. So, how could he miss Dexter? After all, Dexter wasn't just a guy in a lab coat. He was always in the thick of things, investigating murders, showing up at crime scenes, and solving cases with remarkable skill. Could Lundy have just missed it, or did he know? What if he knew Dexter's secret but never said a word? Keep that thought in mind, because it might be the key to understanding the FBI's involvement in covering up Dexter's murders. Frank Lundy was obsessed with the Bay Harbor butcher case, and as a seasoned FBI agent, he should have been able to spot the connection between Dexter and the murders. Dexter's killings were calculated and precise, following a strict code that left no trace behind. Yet, despite his focus, Lundy never made the connection. So, why did he fail to act? Dexter wasn't a typical killer. He didn't kill for personal gain or target innocence. He killed criminals, those who had escaped justice. This is where it gets complicated. Lundy had spent his career hunting down traditional criminals, but Dexter was different. Was it possible that Lundy, jaded by the justice system's flaws, saw Dexter's actions as a necessary evil? Maybe he viewed Dexter as someone who was doing what the system couldn't, cleaning up the mess left behind by untouchable criminals. Lundy was no stranger to moral gray areas, having seen how many criminals evaded justice. Could he have understood that Dexter, while breaking the law, was doing the world a favor? Dexter's kills weren't out of malice. They were driven by a twisted sense of justice. If Lundy recognized this, could he have chosen to look the other way? This moral dilemma is at the heart of Lundy's inaction. He knew what Dexter was doing, but stopping him would mean going against his own understanding of right and wrong. If you were in Lundy's shoes, would you have stopped Dexter? Or would you have let him continue his work, knowing that in his own way, he was making the world safer? Lundy's decision wasn't about missing the signs. It was about whether he could confront a man who, despite his crimes, might have been doing the right thing. Would you have chosen to stop Dexter or let him carry on? Frank Lundy's obsession with solving the Bay Harbor butcher case was consuming. Yet despite his meticulous nature, he failed to make the connection between Dexter and the killings. Dexter's crimes followed a distinct, calculated pattern, each murder part of a ritualistic cycle, leaving no evidence behind. Dexter wasn't careless. His precision was what made him so dangerous. So how did a seasoned FBI agent like Lundy miss it? Was he truly blind to Dexter's actions, or was there something deeper at play? Dexter didn't kill randomly. He followed a strict code, targeting only those who had escaped justice. In this way, Dexter wasn't just another killer. To Lundy, who spent his career hunting down criminals, Dexter was something entirely different, a necessary force. Dexter was eliminating the very people Lundy had failed to stop. He wasn't driven by personal gain or malice. Dexter's killings were guided by a warped sense of justice, a kind of vigilante action that Lundy, deep down, may have understood. Could Lundy have seen Dexter as someone doing the work that the system couldn't? Lundy, a man well-versed in the flaws of the justice system, had witnessed how criminals often slipped through the cracks. He knew how the law failed to hold people accountable. It's possible that Lundy, frustrated by the system's limitations, recognized that Dexter was, in his own way, fixing what the law couldn't. Dexter wasn't a mindless murderer. He was a man with a moral code, choosing victims who deserved to die. Dexter wasn't targeting innocents. He was cleansing society of those who had evaded justice. This presents a moral dilemma for Lundy. Could he bring himself to stop someone who, in his mind, was doing the world a service? Dexter's killings, while illegal, were a form of justice in Lundy's eyes. Dexter wasn't acting out of vengeance or power. He was acting out of necessity, removing dangerous criminals who would continue to hurt others. Could Lundy have understood that Dexter's work, while outside the law, was the kind of justice the system couldn't deliver? Lundy's silence isn't just about overlooking the truth. It's about a decision to ignore it. Dexter wasn't a monster in Lundy's eyes. Instead, he might have been someone who was doing what Lundy couldn't, eliminating the real monsters. Could Lundy's inaction have been a choice to protect Dexter? Or did he simply understand that, in some twisted way, Dexter was fixing the system's broken parts? Lundy's choice wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a moral decision, one that cuts to the core of justice and the complexities of right and wrong. If you were in his shoes, would you have stopped Dexter? Or would you have allowed him to continue believing that, in the end, he was doing what needed to be done? After Lundy's tragic death, the FBI seemed to lose interest in the Bay Harbor butcher case, almost as if they were relieved. With Lundy gone, the investigation stalled. He had been the one most determined to uncover the truth, and his death removed the most significant threat to Dexter's secret. The FBI and Miami Metro quickly shifted their focus away, and the case was left to gather dust. Dexter's secret for the moment was safe. But here's the question. Was the FBI truly incompetent, or did they actively choose to ignore what was right in front of them? The Bay Harbor butcher case had been one of the most high-profile investigations in Miami. The FBI was well aware of the gruesome murders, and yet they seemed to lose all momentum once Lundy was out of the picture. They had the evidence. They knew there was a connection between the butcher's victims and Dexter's work. So, why did the investigation come to a screeching halt? It's hard to believe that the FBI didn't have more intelligence. Lundy wasn't the only one who had connected some of the dots. Dexter had been involved in so many of the key investigations, and his behavior was suspicious at best. So why did they back off just when they were so close to uncovering the truth? Could the FBI have been protecting Dexter? After all, there was a complicated dynamic at play. Dexter's work, while illegal, was viewed by some as a form of vigilante justice, a warped solution to a broken system. Or perhaps there was something darker happening behind the scenes. Was Dexter being protected not just by the FBI, but by a system that saw him as a necessary force, eliminating criminals who had slipped through the cracks of the law? The truth remains murky, but the FBI's sudden disinterest is telling. Let's step back and take a bigger look at what this all means. If the FBI, through Frank Lundy, chose to ignore Dexter's crimes, then they were complicit in the cover-up. Lundy, whether knowingly or unknowingly, played a crucial role in allowing Dexter to continue his rampage. But the real question is, why did they let it happen? Was it because Dexter was doing what the law couldn't? Was it because they didn't want to face the truth about how deeply flawed the justice system really was? Dexter was a force of nature. He was cleaning up the mess that no one else could. And maybe that's why the FBI chose to look the other way. When we look back at Dexter's journey, it's hard to ignore the role the FBI played, or rather, the role they didn't play. Frank Lundy, the one man who could have stopped Dexter, chose not to. Whether out of fear, respect, or moral ambiguity, Lundy and the FBI allowed Dexter to continue his work, even if it meant covering up his crimes. So, the next time you watch Dexter, ask yourself, was Dexter truly a monster? Or was he simply a man who understood that sometimes justice needs to be taken into your own hands? And if you were in Lundy's shoes, would you have stopped him? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the FBI knew and just let it happen? Or were they genuinely blind to Dexter's crimes? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.